Imagine you're in a heated argument with someone. Emotions are high and words are flying. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, isn't it? But what if you chose a different path? What if you chose silence? You see, there's an immense power in silence. It's a strategy that seems counterintuitive, yet it's incredibly effective. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Remain silent, let others reveal themselves," and he was spot on. When you stay silent, you allow the other person to expose their thoughts, their weaknesses, and their true intentions. Silence can be disarming. It can throw off your opponent, making them second-guess their own words. It can shift the dynamics of the conversation, turning the tide in your favor without a single word uttered from your lips. So remember, in the face of conflict, sometimes silence is the loudest statement you can make. Consider this. You're in a business meeting and there's a colleague who seems to be your adversary. Now, what could be your most powerful tool in this situation? It's the art of listening. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't just a witty quip, it's a fundamental truth. By actively listening, we begin to understand the other person's perspective, their motivations, and most importantly, their vulnerabilities. It's like gaining access to a secret playbook. You can anticipate their moves and strategically plan your own. And the best part? They'll have no idea that you're doing it. They'll see it as respect, a willingness to engage when really you're gathering intelligence. So listen more, speak less, and you'll find your adversary revealing their weaknesses. Imagine you're in a situation where there's a potential for a fight, maybe a disagreement with a neighbor. Now, what if I told you that you can turn this potential clash into a chance for understanding and resolution? That's the power of diplomacy over confrontation. Let's recall the words of the Stoic philosopher Seneca, who said, "A wise man fights with his wits." And that's precisely what diplomacy is all about. It's about using your wits, your words, and your wisdom to diffuse tension and resolve conflicts peacefully. You see, when we choose to negotiate, we're not just avoiding a fight. We're also opening up a channel of communication. We're inviting the other person to express their views, to share their concerns. And in doing so, we're creating an opportunity for understanding, for empathy, for resolution. So before you raise your fists, raise your words, engage in diplomacy, and witness how you can destroy your enemy without even throwing a punch. Consider a scenario where you're being provoked by an enemy. It's in our nature to react, to defend ourselves, to strike back. But what if we told you there's another way? A way that can turn the tables and give you the upper hand. That way is patience. Marcus Aurelius, a great Stoic philosopher, once said, "Endurance is not just the ability to bear a hard thing, but to turn it into glory." Patience, my friends, is endurance. It's the ability to hold your ground, to weather the storm, and to turn the tide in your favor. It's a tool that can frustrate your enemy, making them restless, leading them to make mistakes, and ultimately, their downfall. So the next time you find yourself in a conflict, let your patience shine. So when an enemy tries to provoke you, remember, patience is not just a virtue, it's a weapon. Picture this, you're in a competition with a rival. Now let's talk about the strategy of distraction, a tactic as old as time itself, but still as effective as ever. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, once said, "The mind uncluttered by useless things makes room for the useful ones." It's a simple yet profound statement. If you can create a distraction, something that diverts your rival's focus, you essentially declutter your path to victory. You see, when the mind is occupied by distractions, it has less room for useful things like strategy and focus. This is where you gain the upper hand. You can move ahead, unimpeded, while your rival is tangled in the web of distractions you've subtly woven. It's not about cheating or playing dirty, it's about understanding human psychology and using it to your advantage. So when you're in a competition, remember, a well-placed distraction can be a game changer. Imagine this, you have an enemy who dislikes you intensely. Now consider the power of kindness. The great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "Kindness is invincible." It's a simple phrase, but it holds a profound truth. When we respond to hostility with kindness, we create a dissonance that can disarm the most bitter of enemies. It's not about being submissive or showing weakness. On the contrary, it's about strength. Kindness is a choice, an act of courage and resilience in the face of animosity. Picture yourself offering a helping hand, a warm smile, or a kind word to this person who harbors ill will towards you. It may not change their perspective overnight, but it plants a seed of doubt, a question in their mind. Over time, this act of kindness can chip away at their resentment, possibly even turning an enemy into an ally. So, remember, when faced with an enemy, choose kindness. It's the most powerful weapon you have. Consider a situation where someone is constantly trying to irritate you. You may feel an urge to respond, to retaliate, but what if I told you there's another way? Welcome to the art of ignoring. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." These words ring true even today. When we engage with those who seek to provoke us, we fuel their intentions and give them power. But by choosing to ignore their antics, we retain control. We starve them of the reaction they crave. Consider this: your enemy tries to provoke you. You feel the irritation brewing. But instead of lashing out, you simply choose to ignore them. You remain calm, composed. Your enemy's words fall flat, their attempts are futile. You've taken away their power without throwing a single punch. So remember, sometimes the best reaction to provocation is no reaction at all. Picture a scenario where your enemy is trying to break you down. Now, you might think that the natural response is to crumble, to give up, or maybe to retaliate. But consider this instead: resilience. It's not about ignoring the pain or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about facing it head-on and choosing to keep going. In the wise words of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Every challenge, every attack, every attempt to break you is just another opportunity to show your strength, to stand tall and say, "I am not defeated, I am not broken." This resilience, this refusal to give up, can be more powerful than any attack your enemy can throw at you. It frustrates them because no matter what they do, they can't break you, they can't defeat you. So, remember, when an enemy tries to break you, show them that you're not just strong, but resilient. Imagine a situation where you're up against a group of adversaries. Now, how can you win without a fight? You infiltrate. Infiltration. A strategy as old as time, yet as effective as ever. Picture this: you're not just entering enemy territory, you're becoming a part of their world. You're learning their habits, their strengths, their weaknesses. You're gaining their trust. And all the while, you're working to turn the tide in your favor. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "The best way to defeat an enemy is to make him a friend." And that holds true here. By infiltrating the enemy's ranks, you're not just getting closer to them, you're positioning yourself to turn them against each other. You're creating allies where there were once enemies. That's the power of infiltration. It's not about brute force or direct confrontation. It's about subtlety, patience, and strategy. So remember, sometimes the best way to win a war is not to fight, but to infiltrate. Consider a scenario where you're up against a formidable enemy. Now let's talk about the power of perspective. It's an instrument that can shift the tides of a conflict without a single blow being dealt. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." This quote encapsulates the essence of perspective. Often the image of our enemies is amplified by our fears and assumptions. They appear more colossal, more invincible than they truly are. But by shifting our perspective, we can see them in a new light. We can spot their weaknesses, their insecurities, their frailties. We can see them as they truly are, not as the monsters we've made them out to be in our minds. This change in perspective can be a game changer. It can turn a formidable foe into a manageable adversary. So remember, when you're up against a formidable enemy, change your perspective. You might find they're not so formidable after all. Thank you for giving out your time in learning how to outsmart your enemy even without a fight. These strategies, when practiced, always give you an edge over your enemy and, in essence, keep you far from their danger. If you've been imparted in any little way by this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel and watch the other videos to build your knowledge in self-development according to the Stoic.